Yes.
27. Now in 27, what's the white thing and the gray thing by her head?
So the white thing is a towel, and the gray thing is a shirt.
Is the neck or the stab wound visible a little bit there?
Yes.
It's on the right side of her neck, is that correct?
Yes.
28. As we get closer to the purse/backpack you described, was blood clearly visible all over it?
Yes.
And that surface area, is that kind of what, if somebody put it on their back, that would be touching their back?
Yes.
$29. I want to ask you about, in this upper corner here, your upper right-hand corner, there appears to be coagulated blood, is that correct?
Yes.
What does coagulated mean?
It's when blood has been sitting for quite a bit of time, it starts to gather together.
Did you document also the blood inside and outside the purse?
Yes.
Is that blood between the deputy's wrists there?
Yes.
Is that blood all in the interior of the purse as well?
Yes.
For the record, that's State Exhibit 31. State Exhibit 32. State Exhibit 33. What's that pink zipper pouch?
It was a makeup bag that she had within the brown purse backpack.
Did it appear there was blood on that as well?
Yes.
34. Does that show a wallet?
Yes.
35. Is there blood on that wallet?
Yes.
36. Whose driver's license and whose picture is that?
That's the victim's driver's license.
Were you able to determine, obviously, that the purse and the contents were Kathy's?
Yes.
37. Was Kathy wearing basically a black T-shirt and some jean shorts?
Yes.
Was she also at one point wearing some Under Armour flip-flops?
I do not know if she was wearing Under Armour flip-flops at one point.
Did you see some Under Armour flip-flops close to her body?
Yes.
But how they got there, you're unaware?
Correct.
Now, it appears that her arm from approximately her upper forearm/elbow area is obstructed. Was her arm under something?
Yes. Her arm was under the kitchen island.
38. Is that the neck wound?
Yes.
39. 40. 41. Tell the jury about, why do you put a ruler up next to the neck wound?
It shows length and width of the injuries on the victim's body.
And is that wound basically wide open?
Yes.
All right, 42. Is that the dishwasher?
Yes.
What's the red thing, the red stuff?
It's apparent blood.
And is that to the left of that same dishwasher?
Yes.
Now going back to 42 for a second. In front of the dishwasher, is that same kitchen island?
Yes.
And Kathy's on basically like the other side of it, correct?
Yes.
Do you know how the blood got all the way over there?
I do not.
Continuing on to 44. In the forefront, or front of the photograph there, is that same kitchen island?
Yes.
Now, is the knife block from which the knife came from visible in this photograph?
Yes.
Going back for a moment, where in this photograph is it visible?
It's to the left of the stove.
And is it kind of like a wooden block there?
Yes.
And were there a number of knives still in the block?
Yes.
And then, of course, an empty space for the knife you located?
Yes.
45. Now, is this obviously of Kathy's legs and feet?
Yes.
And by her feet, what were the 4 items that you found on the floor there?
There was a left flip-flop, a right flip-flop, 2 phone charging cords, and a set of keys.
Is that blood on the cupboard in the upper left of the photograph?
Yes.
48. Are those the items you mentioned?
Yes.
And it appears that there's an Under Armour logo on one of the flip-flops. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does that appear to be apparent blood in State Exhibit 49 on the bottom of Kathy's flip-flop?
Yes.
In State Exhibit 50, does there appear to be some apparent blood on the other flip-flop?
Yes.
And those are a matching pair, is that correct? Both Under Armour? In State Exhibit number 51, does there appear to be blood underneath the chargers?
Yes.
52, 53, 54. Did you see various marks and bruises and or scrapes on Kathy's legs and feet, or Kathy's legs?
Yes.
Continuing on with 55 and 56. All right, going to 57. Is that show what you were describing, her right arm being under the kitchen island?
Yes.
Going back to 57. The bottom of the island, does there appear to be a lot of blood near her arm, extending to the left and the right?
Yes.
And on that single door by the shelves, is that blood?
Yes.
$59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66. Is the knife lock much more apparent in this photograph?
Yes.
You mentioned to the left of the stove on the countertop.
Yes, sir.
67, 68, 69. Now, in 69, is there something on the island that caught your attention?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
The victim's cell phone.
And it does appear that the countertop of that kitchen island is pristine and nothing knocked over, no problems.
Yes, sir.
In 71, is that a close-up of Kathy's cell phone?
Yes, sir.
And the time at that point was 11:09 on Sunday, September 8th, as you're taking photographs?
Yes, sir.
Now, on the screen, there appears to be some pictures or icons. Were you able to kind of take a close-up and figure out what those were? Can you see on your screen?
Yes, sir. They were notifications on her phone.
And who did she get notifications from? Can you read the print?
She had a missed call from Susan Deathman, and it appears a text message from a Detective Lacey.
And are you able to see a little bit of the content of that text message from the detective?
Yes, sir.
What does it say?
I tried to call you.
In 73, there appears to be some yellow tape and rulers. What's the purpose of that?
That is for us to do bloodstain documentation.
I also noticed that the island appears to no longer be there in the kitchen, exposing Kathy's right arm and hand and watch. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How did you move the island?
We had about 3 or 4 of the homicide detectives move the island.
And was that in order to document what was underneath the island?
It was in an effort to preserve any blood, apparent blood, that may be on the floor underneath and around the victim.
And does 74 show some additional blood that would have been under the island by the victim's right hand?
Yes.
75. Is that the white towel and the gray shirt you mentioned earlier?
Yes.
Now, from 75 to 76, did you pick up the gray shirt to investigate further?
Yes.
What does 76 show?
It's an apparent slit in the gray t-shirt.
And are you aware of how that got there?
I am not.
Are you aware when that got there?
No.
Are you aware of who did that?
No.
77. What's that show?
It's a small hole in the shirt.
Where on the shirt is that? Do you know, like front or back? Do you remember?
It's the back left shoulder of the shirt.
Do you know what caused that?
No.
Do you know how it got there?
No.
When it got there?
No.
Who did that to that shirt?
No.
Whether it was purposeful or accidental?
No.
All right, as we move on to 77A, is that same shirt?
Yes.
And where do you take that photograph of the shirt?
I was at the Forensic Investigations office.
And is that like a gray camo shirt?
Yes.
77B appears to be a close-up. What was the purpose of the close-up? What does it show?
It's showing apparent blood
Where on that shirt is the apparent blood?
underneath the collar of the shirt.
And I believe you might be able to point to something on the screen with a mouse.
Mouse up there on
This.
If you could, for everybody's benefit, kind of show where the apparent blood is.
It is about right here on the shirt.
Okay. All right, moving on to 78. Is that Kathy's feet,
Yes.
foot, excuse me, and there's apparent blood all over her foot?
Yes.
Carrying on with 79 and 80. 81. 82. Were you able to see bruises on different parts of her arms and legs?
Yes.
83. Now in 84, I take it at this point, Kathy had been taken away. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does this show what would have been underneath Kathy's body,
Yes.
including the coagulated blood at the top of the photograph you mentioned?
Yes.
Okay, for the record, that was 85. Now we go outside. 86, is that black Volkswagen that was right by the door, by the carport?
Yes.
The interior of the car in 87, did you find a cell phone in that car?
Yes.
And a computer,
Yes.
laptop? 88, is that the black cell phone?
Yes.
And were you able to determine this was the defendant's car and the white car was Kathy's car?
I wasn't made aware of which car was which on scene.
Did you find that out later?
Yes.
There appeals, excuse me. The next photograph, which is 89. What does that say on that paperwork?
It says the R. Fred Lewis 2021 Florida High School Mock Trial Competition.
And then 90, is that a continuation of that paperwork?
Yes.
And what's the subject matter of that? If you could read what you're able to make out.
Would you like me to read what I can from
Yes.
this? The victim, a Caucasian male, approximately 5'11" in height and weighing approximately 235 pounds. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the back of the head, caused by a smooth, rounded object, cylindrical in shape, consistent with a tire iron. The blow to the head lacerated the skin, causing substantial bleeding, and crushed the skull, causing bone fragments to become embedded in the brain. The time of death is estimated to have been between 10 and 11:30 p.m. on January 3rd, 2020. The defendant's criminal record includes convictions for the misdemeanors of battery, disorderly intoxication, trespass, and vandalism, and the felony offense of cultivation of marijuana.
And for the record, this has nothing to do with the defendant, correct?
Correct.
Okay, continue.
The first two convictions were in 2011 and grew out of a barroom fight. The trespass and vandalism charges relate to a protest by the defendant and several others at the Pinnacle Paper Company on Thanksgiving Day 2019, during which windows and doors were spray painted with red paint and a load of manure was dumped at the entrance of the administrative building. The drug conviction was in 2004. Of the registered vehicles in Canton County, there are 414 Ford F-150.
And where was this paperwork found?
It was in the black Jetta.
91. Is that a wallet?
Yes.
92. When you open the wallet, whose ID did you find?
Colin Griffith.
93. Is this the back seat?
Yes.
And on the rear left floorboard, was there a uniform of some type?
Yes.
And did you find out upon closer inspection it was a Domino's work uniform?
Yes.
95. Going to the car parked on the street, is that what you would later find out to be Kathy's white Volkswagen?
Yes.
96. Was it clean inside?
Yes.
And did you find any objects of note in the front seat?
No.
Did you find any objects of note in the back seat?
No.
Were any firearms or weapons found in her car?
No, sir.
Going to 98, pop the trunk open. What did you see in the trunk?
An organizer and just some mix and match bags.
And then finally 99, did there appear to be some like grocery bags maybe?
Yes.
All right, now we're going to segue briefly to 167 to 169. Going to the aerial overheads. Thank you. All right, 167. Could you please point for the jury, with the red arrow again, where the crime scene house is located? All right, so that's the carport, the driveway, the mulch you can kind of see, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then the two houses that seem to be most directly across the street, could you put the arrow on those two houses? All right, thank you. And then 168, could you point to the crime scene house? All right. Then the houses across the street. And then finally, the last photograph. That's the crime scene house there. And all right, thank you. Now, describe to the jury in a general sense, when you see evidence or things that might be evidence, how do you impound it, or what do you do with it?
So we first talk to our detective on scene, whoever our homicide detective is, or any general detective, depending on the type of call that it is, and we confirm with them that they want it collected as an item of evidence. We take brown paper bags with us into scenes, and we will write the time that we've collected it, what the item is, and where we've collected it from. And then we put them all together, and we will take them back with us to the office to put in a temporary evidence locker.
Did you take fingernail swabbings and or clippings from the victim?
Yes.
Describe to the jury what that means and how you did that.
So we first got permission from the medical examiner to be able to do that on scene, but for swabbings, we take a wet cotton swab that we wet with water, and then we take a dry cotton swab and we rub underneath the fingernails of the victim, and then we will also take fingernail clippers and clip the victim's fingernails and place them in a small manila envelope that has a glassine envelope in it as well.
And can your end product then be sent to FDLE, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, for them to do any analysis that they want to do?
Yes.
Such as DNA comparisons or things of that nature?
Yes.
Now, between the victim's right hand, between her index finger and her thumb, and like the webbing there, did you notice an injury?
Yes.
Did you describe it as a laceration?
Yes.
Now, when a victim is taken to the medical examiner's office, do they take photographs that document the body, the injuries, the external and the internal?
Yes.
All right, Investigator Ellis, I don't have any further questions for you.
Investigator Ellis, I just have a few questions for you. When you took the pictures that have been shown to the jury today, that was many hours after Kathy Griffith died, correct?
I am not sure of the exact time of death for her.
Well, you responded at about 7,
Yes.
right? And you didn't take pictures until after 9.
Yes.
So at least those 2 hours, if not longer.
Correct.
And during those 2 hours, you don't know who all was in that kitchen, do you?
No.
And before you even arrived on scene, at about 7, you don't know who was in that kitchen.
No.
Are you aware that first responders or emergency medical technicians did respond to the scene to perform life-saving functions on Kathy Griffith?
Yes.
And you're aware of that partly because she had some of the stickers that they use on her body, right?
Yes.
The area where Kathy Griffith was laying is a fairly tight area, right?
Yes.
So have you been on scenes before when emergency medical technicians are trying to revive someone or save their lives?
I have not been present while they are performing life-saving measures. I've been present after the fact.
Okay, so you're not aware of how frantic it is and how many people have to get close to the body?
Correct.
Okay, but it's at least possible that first responders or emergency medical technicians may have altered the kitchen in some way, not on purpose, but in their efforts to save Kathy Griffith.
Yes.
May have stepped on things, right, like blood,
Yes.
and they may have moved items that got in their way, right?
Yes.
Like the bag that we saw in the picture.
Yes.
Are you also aware that Colin Griffith actually performed CPR for quite some time on Kathy Griffith before anybody else responded to the scene?
I did not know anything pertaining to him prior to my arrival.
Have you been trained in how to do CPR on somebody?
Yes.
And one of the first things anyone is instructed to do is to lay the person flat on their back, right?
Yes.
And that's enabling the person who's performing CPR to get a good surface upon which to do the chest compressions, right?
Yes.
So you have no idea what position Kathy Griffith was in either when she suffered the wound to her neck or shortly after she suffered the wound to her neck.
Correct.
Are you aware at all of the mechanics of how wounds work?
I do not have any experience with wounds.
Okay. I'll save that for somebody else then. The flip-flops that you spoke about, they were actually reversed, right? Like the left one was on the right and the right one was on the left in the picture?
Yes.
And one was turned upside down?
Yes.
So it wasn't like somebody just fell back out of their shoes, right?
It could be possible, yes.
And then they flipped and one turned over?
Yes.
Okay. The island, you mentioned it took 3 to 4 detectives to lift it and move it. So it wasn't like you could just touch it or bump against it and it would move like this on wheels.
Correct. It was pretty heavy.
The shirt that you talked about in the photos, was it actually determined that that shirt belonged to Colin Griffith?
I was never informed if it actually belonged to him. It just had Colin Griffith's name written on the inside of the shirt.
And that shirt was recovered from around Kathy Griffith's neck.
Above her head.
Above her head,
Yes,
okay.
on the floor above her head.
Okay. So like it had been possibly taken off and used to either support her head or try and stop the wound from bleeding?
Possibly.
It was right near towels that were possibly serving that purpose as well, right?
Yes.
And did you take pictures of Colin ever?
I did not. I never made contact with Colin.
All right. The slit that you mentioned on the shirt, where was it on the shirt?
It was on the lower, more midsection left side of the shirt.
So like the torso area?
About right here. Yes.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to stand up and show
Sorry.
the jury because they can't see.
It's about right here.
Right here?
Yes.
Okay, so front left side of his stomach area.
Yes.
And you said you never made contact with Colin, so you never took the photographs of him.
I did not. That was forensic investigator Bange.
The keys that were seen on the trunk of the black Jetta,
Yes.
that key ring contained several keys on it, right?
Yes.
And although that key ring with keys was on top of the black Jetta, it actually contained the keys to the white Jetta that was parked in the street, right?
I'm not sure.
So you didn't...
I did not unlock the vehicles. The detectives unlocked the vehicles.
Okay. Well, let me put it this way. The keys that were in the kitchen,
Yes.
it was on a round key ring, right? With just a car key.
Yes.
Okay. So did you test that to see that it actually belongs to the black Jetta?
I did not do anything as far as unlocking or locking vehicles.
And when you log evidence, you don't mention like key ring because there are 2 Jettas here, specifying which one the keys go to?
I specified what was on the key rings, but I didn't know what car key in particular went to each car.
The key ring that had just one car key on it, it had no other keys, right?
Correct.
No house keys.
Correct.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Any redirect?
No, thank you.
Is the witness released?
Yes, sir. I shall remain on standby for later on.
All right. You're free to go for today. If you're needed back, you'll get a phone call. Thank you. Would you approach off the record briefly? Just housekeeping.